2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And the reports of my demise have been greatly exaggerated. I put up an April Fool's joke this morning that the show was over permanently, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. Jake Feinberg Show, like music, is an endless discovery of learning. And without further ado, I want to bring in a character who turned down opportunities to go on the road with B.B. King and Lionel Hampton because the money in the studio scene and the jingle market was absolutely too good to turn down. He today has continued on his march, his rhythm march towards enlightenment and inspiring people, which he will be doing at the Mesa Performing Arts Center with Billy Cobham in the Art of the Rhythm section in July, the 17th to the 24th of this year. Dom Famularo, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Jake, thank you so much. It's great to hear your voice again. And it's great that you're alive and well and still on the
air. Yeah, no, it's amazing, the response. People are just bugging out. But, you know, people come to rely on you. I wonder, Dom, if you could talk about a story in your career where you didn't even, I'm not saying you were questioning yourself or your ability, but maybe you didn't necessarily know the impact that you actually were having on people, and all of a sudden it got reinforced to you in a very kind of cosmic way where you realized that not only you're playing, but your voice was very much needed in the conversation.
Boy, Jake, you know, that actually is another great question, which you always seem to step deep into the soul of myself, as all the artists that you interview. Great question. You know, there's always the unfortunate challenges that we have as humans, that we begin to doubt ourselves and what we do. And for me, the essence of life was always to matter and make a difference. And it just so happened that drumming and music was a part of my calling. So I just kept on following that. And I think when I got involved with teaching, you know, performing was always great because I'd play for a crowd, the crowd would be responsive, and it would be that immediate gratification of sensing that you did something good at that performance or that night. But teaching has opened up a whole nother realm of stepping into someone's life, where I have been a part of someone's life, and I've opened them up, and I've seen in their eyes something that I said or something that I gave them open them up to then really tap into their calling. And that's a reinforcement that happens pretty often with teaching that keeps on regenerating and refueling me to keep going for my purpose and my cause. It's amazing.
This is the third conversation I've had with Dom Famularo, and you told this gripping story last time about a visually impaired audience that you had and this blind student who came out of his shell after a couple of years because of your drumming patterns. I wanted you to talk about the Art of the Rhythm section in July. I had a chance to interview the legendary Barry Harris yesterday, and
nice.
I love him. And he says for his students, he has to play for them so that they can see that he has this ability to just that he can play all over his instrument. And I wonder, this balance that you guys, that you specifically, how much of the teaching component is practical application on the kit in Mesa versus, imploring them to, like we just talked about, believe in yourself, know that self-doubt is part of the human condition, to keep plowing forward and to make a difference. I mean, can you talk about the balance that you want to strike in July?
Boy, absolutely, Jake. Again, great question, because there really is a balance of each individual person tapping into their purpose and their journey that they're on. This quest to constantly learn and constantly grow and challenge ourselves with learning new things on our instrument that maybe we're not able to do. So what Billy Cobham has done for years and what he continues to do, Billy is an incredible inspiration for me for the past 40 plus years that I've known Billy. And he always has been consistent in that balance, pushing himself as an artist and then teaching and sharing information to inspire others. So what happened at the first retreat that we did at the Mesa Arts Center last year, it was really a powerful moment. And all of the students that were there talked about a life-changing moment where not only did they have the confidence to move forward with their passion for music, but they felt that they now knew what to practice and how to get there. So it was that balance of both. And Billy does it so well. He has the entire band on the stage. All of the participants are sitting around. Everyone is actively involved. They listen to the band perform. Billy then explains what they went through in their communication back and forth. And when Billy plays with the band, you can see and you can feel the electricity between the members as they're playing. So to witness that close is absolutely life-changing. And then from that, Billy, myself, all the band members, we start going down the concepts of how we can step into the music to learn some of the challenges that we have. And each of the participants, as we all do, have a different set of challenges. So we find out what those challenges are. We begin to work on those challenges. And to see the change from day 1 to day 5 is totally awe-inspiring. It's really amazing.
Could you give a specific example of a student, without naming names, about the evolution from day 1 to 5?
Absolutely. There was, and there's several of them I can do. There was a young drummer, probably the age of about maybe 25, 26, around there, that came on that really didn't have a feel for holding the band together. His time wasn't good, and part of his time challenge was his technique facility wasn't totally there, but also his lack of confidence. He didn't have the confidence. He was kind of nervous and intimidated with any band that he plays. So he comes to this retreat facing his fear, which right there is a winner as far as I'm concerned.
Right on, yeah.
He came there to attack that challenge. So the first day, his time wasn't that good, and he was nervous in front of the band. The second day, he got more comfortable. And remember, each evening, there's a jam session going on. So after the full day of seminar and instructional classes that go on, the evening jam session, you're playing. So he played the first night at the jam session, and he began to loosen up when he felt Dean on guitar playing and Jerry and these guys and just the great musicians that Billy has in his band. They really are great guys to make you feel good. So during the jam session, they made him feel good, and they accepted him, even though his playing wasn't at the highest level. The second day the kid comes in, he put some time into it, asked the right questions, got up and played again, and you saw day by day how he improved. Well, now it's day 4. And I'm watching this in the back, and I'm making notes. By day 4, he volunteers to go up and play a song, sits on there, confidence the way he sat on the drum set, called the tune he wanted with the band plays it, and he nailed this groove. Strong and powerful, held the groove down. The band was smiling at each other. There was interaction going on with interplay. It was a completely different person. So what happened was, it's the balance between, do I have the confidence, and can I obtain that confidence to make this better? And what techniques and skills do I need? So when Billy talked about playing time and locking into that right cymbal better and feeling your whole body step into the groove, and I spoke about certain techniques like the free stroke, lead in the stick rebound, and molar to loosen your arms up, and I gave him a couple seating ideas where you can sit a little closer to the drum set. All of that, and all of the combination of what happened, by day 5, this guy was a seasoned pro when he sat down. So now he's playing in the jam session every night. He's asking the right questions. He's challenging himself. So what we saw in 5 days was really nothing shy of a miracle, seeing somebody walk out of there 10 feet tall with the confidence of playing music. That means that person is going to go out to wherever they live and start playing music in their area at a higher level. This is how you change the world.
No, I mean, dude, just already having a ball with Dom Famularo. Here's the thing, though. Okay, but is there a way to not necessarily discern? You know, these people don't necessarily come back to these week-long seminars. But do you? Really, I just transcribed from our second interview. I was talking to you about how mercurial your recording career was, and you talked very eloquently about just being immersed in the jingle market and having opportunities to go on the road with B.B. King and Lionel Hampton, but the money just wasn't good enough. I mean, do you feel like it is nothing short of a miracle, and you love seeing people feeling good about themselves, and it's not an ego thing, but it's more of a confidence thing. But here, the reality is, Dom, I mean, what are the opportunities that these cats have to go back and really work in a supportive environment? I guess that's one of it, is that how do they continue to grow in this paradigm that we live in, where they go back? And then also, I could be wrong, but I have to assume, I've been talking to everybody and their brother, that they used to go to Bop City or wherever it was. They'd get up on the bandstand, and the rest of the cats, if you couldn't do it, they just walk off the bandstand. So you could.
Right.
So I mean, that was your generation's learning medium, which some people would say would be too harsh and cruel. This is more of a feel good kind of thing. I mean, can you parse the two between the sort of, you got to, because I mean, back in the day, I was just talking to I think I was talking to John Allaire, who's this organist in the Bay Area, and he was talking about going out to Bop City, and they'd go there and they'd say, "Okay, nice job, John. Thanks a lot for coming." Because they would play these they'd play these tempos at like 100 and 350 beats a minute, whatever it is, and so talk about the evolution of how we build confidence in musicians between your generation and mine, and then also, what do they have to go back to continue their growth in their playing?
Boy, great perspective, Jake. And this is the brilliance of Billy Cobham. This is, I should say, one of the brilliance, because Billy comes out there and basically says, "Listen, it's time to put your big boy and big girl pants on, and we're going to come out here, and in 5 days we're going to do a year's worth of growing up." Wow. And it really comes to that. In the olden days, and I say olden days, I'm 63, and when I was younger and I went to a jam session, you're right, it was sink or swim.
Yeah.
And they let you know it on that stage. And it was immediate. If you really were into it, you took in what they said and you changed it. I can remember going into a jam session, and I was playing, and I was like about maybe 16 years old, and the sax player, an older jazz player up front, turns to me and says, "Give me your ride cymbal up my ass." And he yelled it at me on stage. I didn't exactly know what that meant, but I could feel his point that my ride cymbal was just not at the place that was inspiring him or holding the band together. So I just turned around and started digging into that ride cymbal, almost to a degree a la Tony Williams. And as soon as I did, I felt the band lift and go to a different area.
Wow.
You can't buy that in university.
No.
That has to be experienced in the moment. And if I didn't have my big boy pants on, I would have walked up that stage intimidated and probably given up drums and went to be a car mechanic like my dad, and I just would have given it up. But instead I said, there's something there. So when I just changed immediately and I tried something, thank God that worked. So that's kind of what Billy has there. He puts you in a situation, and he kind of really puts you in a situation so you have to produce something different than what you're doing if it's not working, and you try something. If that doesn't work, try something again. After 3 or 4 tries, you're going to get closer. And with Billy right behind you, coaching you in your ear, and me on the other side screaming at you, telling you to keep on going, this is a great combination. And there are several guys that are coming back again, and several girls that are coming back again for this retreat to kind of follow up to part 2. Now, to continue that kind of inspiration for someone when they go back to their area, and they go back to their house to try to continue that, there's a couple ways of doing it. There's A, continue taking maybe lessons with good players in your area, so you can continue to have that inspiration. Maybe if they're not in the area, get onto Skype and take some Skype lessons, which I do all the time in my studio. And some of my Skype lessons are not about teaching drumming, it's about coaching people. I just, 2 days ago, I taught 8 one-hour lessons to 8 different students.
Wow.
From 8 different countries. I mean, it was intense. I went from Canada to the U.S. to Belgium to I was in South Africa at one point. I went to Norway. It was intense, lesson after lesson. So they had a taste of me, and they had a taste of my motivation. They had a taste of my encouragement. They had a taste of my coaching for that little bit of an hour time for me to push them further. And they might be in a little village outside of Luleå, a town in the north of Sweden. So there are ways to pull that inspiration to continue going. The last part of it is it takes musicians to go back to the area and put together jam sessions and organize playing situations. Find a club that you can go down there, ask somebody if you can have a Monday night or a Wednesday night jam session, put it together, invite some players down. It may take a few weeks before you get the momentum happening, but the bottom line is it's going to happen, and you're going to grow from that, and you're going to create a positive vibe in your area. That's what we did years ago, and that formula still works.
Talking to Dom Famularo here live on the Jake Feinberg Show on Power Talk. Okay, I want to ask you about, can you talk about, I'm always interested in Dom Famularo's career on the bandstand. Could you talk about a band that you played in where it was the most free music you ever played? I say this because I really am obsessed with drummers who are not just playing time, but they're also improvising. And I'm just like, Dom, clearly you had rhythm and blues chops. I mean, B.B. King liked your feel. You could play big band jazz. I'm like, where was I want the Dom Famularo, what was the most free environment you ever played in? What kind of band looked like?
Boy, great question. There are some musicians. I love this, Jake, because you make me go back into my past to find things that really kind of were a major part of what has created me to be me. Mm-hmm. I still don't know who the hell I am.
We're all still growing, man. Yeah, I dig.
Absolutely. And you only grow if you continue to have the desire to grow, which I do. And I got that from my mentors, all of my great teachers, the Shelley Manns, the Joe Morellos, the Jim Chapins, the Ted Reeds, the Philly Joe Jones, the Papa Joe Jones. They all were avid students of learning. So I had a band that I was in several years ago, and there was a keyboard player by the name of Frank Goldstein. Frank is a monster keyboard player. He knows all styles. He can play anything from Oscar Peterson to Chick Corea to Earth, Wind & Fire, funk grooves. I mean, he's just a very versatile player. The bass player was Tony Opedisano, who was a great, jazz and he played guitar and bass, and his skills in it was such a natural musician. He had perfect pitch, and he could hear any song one time and know it inside and out. And then the guitar player was Joe Carbone. Joe Carbone's a New York session guitar player here in the Long Island, New York area. I worked with for years. And we would get together and play as a quartet. And we'd bring in, there was a sax player on Long Island. His name was Richie Scolo, another great sax player who studied with great guys. And we'd have this band together. All of us were top, seasoned players. But when we got together, there was no rehearsal. And the theme was, rehearsal is for cowards. Now, I love that, Jake, because what that means is you want big boy pants on. You got to come to that gig and be prepared to turn on a dime for a style or a tune. And it's very expensive. So we would just, Frank would just start playing some changes. Guys would come in. I'd come up in the field, and we were off and running. And sometimes a song would last 20 minutes, and it would have different areas to it where it would change feels, it would change tempos. Very exciting. And every time we played about 2 or 3 nights a week at different clubs, and we had nothing planned, but yet the club was packed, and people came because they knew they were going to experience something that was unorthodox, and they were going to hear something that was different, and they knew they were going to get a high quality of musicianship. And that was a pretty intense, and we worked for several years in the New York area. And then part of that group moved out to California, and we played out in California for about a year and a half. And it was really kind of exciting to experience that level of musicianship that you just had to expect the unexpected.
Let me ask you though. I mean,
that's
how do
real
you,
fun.
I dig. I mean, people like Jerry Garcia. They never liked the R word for rehearsal. They never liked that word. Okay, but what do you talk to these students at the retreat about with rehearsing? Because my generation, younger generations, are caught up in perfection. They have to do takes 40 times. I mean, Barry Harris. I mean, Dance of the Infidels, one take. Okay. I mean, dude, there was Charlie Parker. He played a different solo on the same tune all the time. But because I get what you're saying. I love the unexpected. How do you cut the where do you come down on when you talk to your students at the rhythm at the Art of the Rhythm Festival, Art of the Rhythm section retreat, about rehearsing and over rehearsing?
Well, Billy and I, both of us, hit this topic a few times, because over rehearsing is dangerous. Because over rehearsing means you're almost to a point where you're not feeling the song in the spontaneity of that first or second take.
Right.
It almost becomes routine, and that's a little dangerous because now what you're doing, the more you rehearse it and the more you're removed away from the song, the less emotional and the less human that song is. So that, for Billy, and I know for myself, is a little dangerous. Billy loves the spontaneity of, sometimes he'll call a tune that they haven't played in a long time, and he'll call it, and he might even call it at a tempo that is different when they played it 15 years ago.
I love it.
And he'll call it, and he does it on stage in front of the students, just so they see him have to experience something that on the spot is Billy showing his true colors, and he always comes out smelling like a rose. That's again the brilliance of Cobbin. He just knows how to just tap into his own feeling, and you have to learn how to trust yourself, and that's a part of what happens at the retreat, at Billy's retreat, because you're actually put in the position where you have to learn to trust yourself. So now, for the students, it is, you got to get to know your instrument. You have to have an understanding of your instrument. You got to really understand it. You got to know the techniques. You have to know styles. You got to have that in your back pocket. And then when you're thrown to the wolves and you're asked to play and improvise, you got to trust your instinct and your skills to pull you through. And that's the balance of where the excitement of music lives. That's on the cutting edge. You know, my mom, which would come to hear my band a few times, she would hear us play, and again, we didn't rehearse, and we were playing, and the crowd is going crazy, and my mom's kind of like saying, what the heck? These guys never rehearse, and they're playing. How are they doing this?
Right.
And that's what she once said to me. She goes, you got to be careful. You're getting too close to life's edge. And when she said that line to me, I looked at her, I said, Mom, when I want to see the edge, I look behind me.
I love it. This is the Art of the Rhythm section retreat is July 16th to the 21st. It is going to be at the Mesa Arts Center. I'll be doing a roundtable discussion with Dean Brown, Billy Cobham, and Dom Famularo. Dom, before I let you go, and I am so excited to meet you in person and hang, but
absolutely.
Can you talk about the first time that you saw Billy Cobham? When did you first cross paths with him? And also, what is the significance of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, what Billy did with that orchestra? If you could answer those two questions.
Absolutely. Billy was living in Queens, Long Island, and I lived further out on Long Island in Nassau County. So I had first met Billy at a couple of local drumming events that went on, and I met Billy, and he had just been with Mahavishnu, and what was exciting about it is we had heard recordings of Cobham play, myself and my friends, and we'd hear him play, and on the recordings on the LP, putting the actual needle on the record and listening to it, it was hard to analyze what he was doing, because if you slowed it down to 33 RPM, it sounded like you were underwater. You just couldn't. It's hard to analyze it. So we couldn't figure out, but the patterns he was playing, there were like floor tom patterns and hi-hat patterns, snare patterns, and the change back and forth was going so great. When we tried to duplicate the pattern with our right hand on our hi-hat, our left hand playing snare, when the left hand went to play the floor tom, we were crossing our arms, and we just couldn't figure out how this guy was able to play these patterns.
Wow.
So now we're analyzing it. So I get a bunch of my friends. We go into New York, and we go to hear Mahavishnu. Now, Mahavishnu, when this freaking band hit the scene, it was like the second Beatles had hit the scene. When the Beatles hit in February of 1964, it changed music in this pop world, and it completely refocused people's thinking. That's what Mahavishnu did by bringing jazz and fusion and rock all together at one place. When you watched the band, you just knew you were experiencing something that was so unique. So we go to see the band. The curtain opens up, and the band is set up there, and I don't see Cobham's hi-hat. So I'm looking, I'm like, where the hell's this hi-hat? And Billy was playing open-handed, so he lowered the hi-hat equal to the snare drum. And Billy, who's a natural righty, was playing his left hand on the hi-hat and his right hand on the snare. And he had started doing that many, many years before, that he just felt that that was an easier and more sensible way to play the drums. Well, it was anti what everybody else was teaching in the world. And Billy, talk about going against the grain and looking behind him to look for the ledge. My gosh, he was totally ahead of the curve. I keep on saying he wasn't really ahead of the curve. He was the curve.
Exactly. He was way out.
So
yeah.
He was the curve. The only way you can follow that curve was to hop on Billy Cobham's tail of what he was doing. So all of a sudden we see him play, and we notice the hi-hat's lower. He's playing open-handed, and then he moves his right hand to his floor tom and played those patterns that we couldn't figure out of the recording. And I went, Jesus, this guy has got a whole nother thing happening here. So he did just that. He played it differently, and because of the technique he was playing, this open-handed technique, it freed up the ideas to say, now I get it. So Mahavishnu not only musically pushed you forward to play odd time signatures with intense fusion at intense tempos, and intensity was in every note with Mahavishnu. Intensity was with every note that they played. You were on the edge of your seat. So to experience that, you can't really experience it by watching it on YouTube. See, the challenge with the younger generation, they're not getting out enough to hear live music. Listen, I can remember every performance that Cobham played that I saw live. Buddy Rich, Louis Bellson, Philly Joe Jones, Max Roach, Art Blakey, all these guys, Elvin, Tony, I can remember every gig in my mind like it was yesterday. But I can't remember the last YouTube clip I watched that I watched about 11 minutes ago.
No, listen, I just, Dom, I got Billy calling in, but I want to tell you, I'm going to be back in Stony Brook in June, so maybe we can grab a cup of coffee if you're around. And then we'll
absolutely.
I love you, buddy. You always are just on top of it. I got Creed Taylor coming on in an hour. I'm hoping that he's straight ahead, but you always are straight ahead and free at the same time. And I look forward to hanging with you, man. We're gonna have a ball.
Send my best to Billy. Tell him I love him. Jake, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much. Give me a holler when you're in town. Good luck, and I'll see you at the retreat.
Absolutely, my man. Be good.
Thanks.
Later
Bye-bye.
on, dude. Bye-bye. That was Dom Famularo. He will be at the Art of the Rhythm Section retreat July 16th to the 21st at the Mesa Performing Arts Center. We'll be right back with the spearheader of that retreat, Billy Cobham, right after this.